Hilchos Maaseh Hakorbanos Perek Achad Asar. The Laws of Sacrificial Procedures, Chapter 11. We're continuing yesterday's theme about eating sacrifices, the proper way to eat them. And yesterday it was more like how to go about eating the sacrifices. Today it's the don'ts. What are all the negative commandments associated with eating sacrifices? Who cannot eat sacrifices? Where can you not eat sacrifices? When can you not eat sacrifices? So first of all, we're going to start with the oila, the burnt offering. The burnt offering is supposed to be just that, burnt. It's not supposed to be eaten. And therefore that's the first don't. It says that Rambam halacha aleph kala oichel kazayis mibsara oila. If somebody eats even an olive-sized portion from meat of a burnt offering, bein lifnei zrikas dama, bein la'achar zrikas dama, whether before or after its blood was sprinkled, because one of the integral steps of any sacrifice's procedure is sprinkling the blood. You would slaughter it, then you would sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. Usually, sprinkling of the blood makes the meat kosher for consumption by sacrifices that are supposed to be consumed. But the burnt offering is not. So it doesn't matter whether it's before or after the sprinkling of the blood, loika, you get lashes. Shanemar, as it says, there's a verse that's quoted maybe 10 times in the Rambam, because it's one small verse that has many details. It says, Lo yisucha lechol bisharecha, you cannot eat anywhere in your gates, anywhere in Israel, you cannot eat masar degoncha tireishcha v'yitzarecha. The verse begins talking about Maaser Sheni, the second tithe, which can only be eaten in Jerusalem. But also at the end of the verse it says, v'goymer, etc., v'chol nedarecha asher tidar. You cannot eat any of the promises which you promise. What does it mean to eat a promise which you promise? From tradition we learn that the pshat of this verse is this is a warning against eating meat from a burnt offering. Because who usually brings a burnt offering? Somebody who makes a promise. I voluntarily promise to bring a burnt offering. And you bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. So Hashem is telling you, don't eat it. These promises which you promised, you bring them to the Beis HaMikdash, you sacrifice them, but you don't eat them. And not only the actual meat, but the Rambam even says, V'chelba uvsara, its fats and its meat, V'solta v'shamna v'yayin shal nisacheh, and even the flour, or the oil, or the wine, that's the nisachim, that's brought accompanied with them, because every sacrifice, no matter what, always had these three things come along, chamishtan mitztarfim lekazayis. Eating a total of an olive-sized portion from all these five will combine to get you lashes. So you take a tiny piece of the oila meat, a tiny piece of the flour, a little bit of wine and oil, and you have an olive size, and you eat it. That's called eating from an oila, eating from a burnt offering, and you get lashes. Halacha Gimel, let's extend it to all sacrifices. If somebody eats an olive-sized portion from any emurin, emurin means the parts that are offered on the mizbeach from any sacrifice, even if it's a peace offering, even if it's a sin offering, there were certain fats and the kidneys and parts of the liver were always brought on the mizbeach. If you eat an olive-sized portion of those parts that are reserved for Hashem, bein lifnei zrika, bein la'achar zrika, bein kohen, bein yisrael, whether it's before or after the sprinkling, whether you're a kohen or a regular Jewish person, loike, you get lashes. Shaha emurin kadal la mizbeach kechala oila, because the parts that go to Hashem on any sacrifice go completely on the Mizbeach like the entirety of the burnt offering. And it says, we'll see about this in a couple of days, the flour offering of a Kohen has a special rule. It needs to be totally burnt. It shall not be eaten. Usually a flour offering, as we're going to see, you bring only a kmitza. You'd stick 3 fingers into the flour. Part of it would go on the mizbeach, the rest was eaten by the kohen. If a kohen is the owner of the mincha, the whole thing goes to the mizbeach. But why does Torah say a double expression? Kolil tia leisei achel. It should totally go on the mizbeach, it shall not be eaten. This teaches a general rule. It says the Rambam, kol shehu kolil ha-mizbeach, achilosei b'leiseseh. Anything which completely goes to the mizbeach, eating it and not letting it go to the mizbeach is a negative commandment. Like in alav, because and you get lashes if you eat an olive-sized portion of it. So therefore, the emurin, the parts that usually go onto the mizbeach completely, if you eat them, you get lashes. Same thing applies if you eat an olive-sized portion from the flesh of the sin offerings that are meant to be burnt outside of Jerusalem, outside of the city. Like you also get lashes because they're not supposed to be eaten. Shanamar, as it says, any sin offering whose blood needs to be sprinkled on the inside of the temple structure, it shall not be eaten, rather it shall be burnt in fire. So if you eat it, you transgress that negative commandment. Halacha dalet. Let's go even further. What if it's a permitted sacrifice? It's a sin offering which the Kohanim are meant to eat. It's a peace offering which Jews are meant to eat. But you ate it at the wrong time. If you eat an olive-sized portion from the meat of sacrifices, even if it's a lower level sacrifice, but you did it before this step, the sprinkling of the blood, which is what's called the matir. That's what allows the blood, the meat to be consumed. Like you get lashes for eating the meat too early. Shanemar, same verse. You cannot eat just anywhere the Maaser Sheni, and then at the end of the verse it says, what else can you not eat? V'nidvaisecha, your donations. Kileimar, what does it mean, your donations? It means to say, you cannot eat your donated sacrifice at your home, in your gates, before their blood is sprinkled at Hashem's gates. In other words, first give Hashem his part, then you can take your part. Therefore, we learn from tradition, this is a clear warning against eating a thanksgiving offering or a peace offering before their blood is sprinkled. And from this we learn to any other sacrifice, lighter ones or stringent ones, that you cannot eat them before their blood is sprinkled. And the same way by the oila, it didn't just include the meat, it included everything that comes along with it. So too over here, Vishisha Dvarim Shabbatayda, all 6 things which usually come together in the Thanksgiving offering, Shehim Achela v'habasar, which are the fats and the meat, v'haselas v'hashemen, the oil and the flour, v'hayayin v'halechem, and the wine and the bread as well, kulan mittarfin lekazayis, all of them together. If you eat an olive-sized portion before the blood is sprinkled, nothing is permitted, it's all going to get you lashes. Halacha hey, the where, location matters. If you eat the flesh, the meat of the highest level sacrifice, sin offering, guilt offering, outside of the temple courtyard where they're supposed to be eaten, like you get lashes, shanemar, as it says, same verse, oh, a little of a mishighlight over here. And then it says, you cannot eat the firstborns of your cattle and your sheep. That seems like an extra word. That tells us, this is a special verse that's coming to forbid eating the flesh of sin offerings, guilt offerings, outside of the temple courtyard. Same thing, doesn't say it clearly in the verse, but if you extend it for the lighter sacrifices that have to be eaten in all of Jerusalem, if you eat them outside of Jerusalem, you get lashes. Because the walls of Jerusalem, in relationship to the lighter sacrifices, have the same relationship as the walls of the temple to the higher level sacrifices. So the same way the kache kachim cannot be eaten outside of the temple courtyard, so to the kachim kalim cannot be eaten outside of the walls of Yerushalayim. The echad, b'sar chatas, v'asham, v'shanim menachos. Temple courtyard applies to all the things that are eaten there. Sin offering, guilt offering, or even leftover of the flour offering. Halacha vav. B'sar kache kachim sheyatza chutz l'cheimas ha'azara. It's not only the person. Not only you can't eat the meat in the wrong place. If the meat went to the wrong place, if the meat of the highest level sacrifices went outside the walls of the temple courtyard, or if the meat of the lighter sacrifices left the wall of Yerushalayim, nifsal v'nesar le'olam, it becomes disqualified, forever forbidden. Even if it comes back in, you can no longer eat it, even if you're inside the proper place.
Has to be burned.
Yes.
Or buried. Or
has to be taken care of. We'll see how to do it in the 2 sets of laws. And if you eat even an olive-sized portion from it, you get lashes. Shenemar, and this is actually learned not from the context of sacrificial meat, it's learned from regular meat. It says in the pasuk, "Uvasar basada treifa lo seichelu." If meat is torn apart in the field, you shall not eat it. And as we saw in the Rambam's 5th book, when talking about these laws, this verse is referring not to a regular treifa, a regular animal torn apart. This is an animal, the example given is a fetus inside a mom's womb. if it sticks out its hand, so it's outside of its mechitza, it's outside of its wall, it becomes forbidden to eat that limb which exited if it returns that limb back into the womb. So from there we learn, Kevan sheyatza basar chutz limchitzasai nasa kitreifa. Once meat leaves its contained partitions, it becomes like a treifa, becomes like a torn animal, as we explained in the laws of the forbidden foods. And the same way a treifa, torn animal, is forbidden to be eaten, so meat that exited its proper space is forbidden to be eaten. Back to here, sacrificial meat, if it left its space, it's forbidden to be eaten. Nichnas psar kachim kalim lahechol. But if, let's say, the lower level sacrificial meat went into a higher level of holiness, into the temple structure, harei kosher, that's kosher. Halacha ches, zor she'achal kazayis, mitzar kachim kachim, ba'azara, achar zrikas damin. What if everything is good? It's the Holy of Holies meat, it's in the temple courtyard, it's after the blood is sprinkled, but the problem is the guy's not a Kohen. He's a zor. So he ate the proper meat in the proper place, but it wasn't good for him. Loika, he gets lashes. Shenemar, as it says, v'achlu oisam asher kupar bohem. The Kohanim have to eat the sacrifices to achieve atonement. And then right away it says, v'goymer v'zar lo yoichal. A stranger, a non-Kohen, shall not eat it. But it puts the prohibition next to the positive commandment. From there we learn, b'makim sha'kohen oichal. U'ba'esher lo yilechal, at the proper place and the proper time, where a Kohen could eat it, im achle sham hazar loike. If the non-Kohen ate it, he'd get lashes. Avol im achal hazar. But let's say if it was a non-Kohen eating the meat of the sacrifice in the wrong place, outside, he will get lashes for eating meat outside, but he won't get lashes for being a non-Kohen eating sacrificial meat, because the Kohenim can't eat it there either, so he doesn't get the responsibility. If he ate it in the wrong time, right, inside the temple courtyard, but before the sprinkling, so only get lashes on account of eating it before the sprinkling of the blood, but he won't get lashes on account of being a non-Kohen, because that prohibition only applies if you're in the proper place and time where a Kohen could eat it. If there was a bird that was offered as a sin offering, and a non-Kohen ate from it, he gets twice lashes. First of all, he's a non-Kohen, and he's eating sacrificial meat. But achas mishum eichel nevela. Interestingly, he's actually eating a not properly slaughtered bird. Because birds in the temple were not slaughtered like we would slaughter a chicken today by kaparis or for the supermarket. Birds were slaughtered with melika, from the back of the neck. Shekol melika nevelahi. Melika, this procedure makes the animal actually improperly slaughtered. Torah gives a special permission for Kohanim to eat it, but not for regular people to eat it. If you're eating it, you're literally eating like non-kosher meat almost. So you get 2 lashes.
Eat nevela?
No. So for the Kohanim, it's considered not a nevela, but otherwise it is. And this would be 2 prohibitions that land at once. Usually you can't get lashes for a double prohibition. But if both prohibitions begin at the same time, the moment the Kohen does malika to the bird, 2 things happen. It becomes a nevela, but it also becomes holy meat for the Kohanim. So since both prohibitions devolve at once, you can be held accountable for both prohibitions at once, and therefore if a non-Kohen eats sacrificial meat from a chatas bird, he gets double lashes.